Hi, I'm Isa, I'm in year 11, and this is the tutorial of how I digitally drew my eye on Procreate using a reference picture as well. I first started off with the base layer, the skin tone, then using a 6B pencil brush on Procreate, I started drawing out the general shape of the eye. I used the 6B pencil brush on Procreate because it was easier to get an accurate shape of the eye, because I was able to use strokes as you would do drawing normally on paper. After drawing the general shape of the eye, I then lowered the opacity and started adding in the big block colours and blending it in using the blending tool. I then focused on the light of the eyelid and focused on the crease of the eye as well, just adding in the colour and blending it in. I added a thinner line on top of the actual crease just so it would be easier to blend in. I then started adding more block colours and rubbing out where it was necessary, just to finalise out the big block colours. I then, looking back at my reference picture, started focusing more on the inside of the eye, starting in with the purple, the pink, and blending it out as you would do. For the blending brush as well, the blending tool, I used the soft blend and I lowered the opacity because it also depends on the amount of pressure you put on the Apple Pencil itself. So I had more control over how I was blending, especially on the inside where I had, a range of different reds and pinks. After that, I then started going in on the iris. Again, looking back at my reference picture, using the 6B pencil, I increased the size as well to make it easier for me. And I started out with the navy blue outline on the inside of the iris. After finishing that and then doing the pupil as well, I then added in the lower crease and blended it out. I then went back onto the iris and started off with a blue base block colour and added in flowy strokes of different blues, and it started off as circular motions. It kind of looks like a flower, and I added in more blues, a lighter blues over the top. I then went in to draw the little details, the squiggly lines and circles in a darker blue, and after filling all of them in and making that more prominent, I then blurred it to make it more subtle and added in more layers of blues and greens. I then went onto the shine, which was just a block of white, lowering the opacity and then blending it in with the eye, so it doesn't just look like a block of white. Blending it in can really make a difference with how realistic it can look. I then did the other side of the eye, finishing off the inside block colours, and started going in more detail on the eyelid as well. It's the same, I just added in the block colour and started blending it in. Again, it's how much pressure you put on the pencil, and lowering the opacity can help. I then used a charcoal pencil to add in more textural elements to it, like the skin, and added more detail to the inside, the very, very inside of the eye, adding more textural elements to the bottom, as you can see, going in more darker on the left side, and adding in some shine as well. I then started going in more detail on the actual skin itself, adding in little white hairs at the top. I then focused more on the crease on the outside, and I did the reflection of the eyelashes on the iris as well using the studio pencil. I then went onto the eyelashes, and doing the eyelashes I kind of went off on a tangent here instead of focusing more on the reference picture. With doing the eyelashes, I used a studio pen, and I blurred out the very bottoms and the tips, the very pointy bits of the lashes itself. And I did the same with the bottom lashes. I blurred out the very bottom tips. I did that mostly for the right side. And then after that I went on doing an extra shadow crease, and I started on the tear. For the base colour of the tear, I used a darker shade of the skin tone and added orange outline, which I blended in. I then added the white block for the shine. I then went on to blend that in as well. And I started adding in just little details more underneath the eye and going back and forth on different details around and focusing again more on the eye. I then went on to add more shadows at the top, and again I went off on a tangent again with against the reference picture, and I extended the tear so it was attached to the bottom, the directly bottom undercrease of her eye. I then changed the other side from the navy blue to the white, just again going off on a tangent, and I was readjusting and editing the lashes a little bit more, adding in a more thicker layer, going over it and then blending that in again with the blending out with the more blurred parts of it. I then changed the setting to lighter shade, so it lightened up the entire picture. Again, I was editing the eyelashes and I started blending it out more, and to make it to give it more of a shadowy look, adding more shadow on the eye from the eyelashes. And I spent quite a lot of time on the eyelashes as well, just redoing that, and I added more shadow on the eyelid as well for the eyelashes. After editing the eyelashes a bit more, I started finalizing, going into more detail, editing the eye and the shadows around, especially with the shine, and extending it more so it's directly on the under crease of the eye. I played around with the settings, and using the brush pen and the blending tool, I made it more red under the eye, and I redid the eyelashes, still using the studio pen. I also changed the overall shape of the eye and made it more compact, because again, looking at the reference picture, just adding in more details and changes, and I added a bit more to the texture of the skin as well. I used the previous lashes just as a bit of help, which is why I lowered the luminosity, the opacity, sorry, and I redid the eyelashes. I blended underneath and the tips as well as I did before, and I did the same with the lower lashes as well. I also added a more thicker second crease next to the first crease of the eye, and I blended out the left side texture a little bit more, then obviously going on to my lower lashes of the eye. I obviously changed the sizes of the blending tool as well, as you know, if I'm blending something more small like lashes, I would decrease it, and I would be very subtle with the Apple Pencil, depending on the pressure, how much I put on it as well. I then started to add more realistic, my own elements. I started to add veins, and obviously me editing the eyebrows, which are eyebrow stamps which I made previously on this app, and finalizing out more shine, and yeah. After that I was done. This drawing took me roughly 2 days to draw, and the brushes that I used were mostly the studio pen, the 6B pencil, the big brush blending tool, and charcoal. Thank you for listening to this tutorial. I hope it was helpful for you and your journey on Procreate and other digital drawing apps.